Here are 9 real-life Bonnie and Clyde couples. Number 6. Natural-born killers. When Oliver Stone's film Natural-Born Killers was released in 1994, it received a pretty mixed response. Some critics loved it, some hated it. But the disturbing legacy this film left behind was the long list of alleged copycat crimes. The satirical film chronicles the story of Mickey and Mallory, two seriously depraved lovers who go on a killing spree, starting with Mallory's parents. Soon after the film came out, several crazy couples tried to imitate the horrific crimes they saw in the movie. For example, a teenage couple, Benjamin James Darris and Sarah Edmonton, watched the film in 1995. Just a few days later, James Darris shot a stranger to death for no apparent reason. He was even deranged enough to keep a blood-stained piece of fabric as a souvenir. The couple then traveled to Louisiana, where Sarah Edmonton shot a convenience store clerk who managed to survive the attack, but the clerk was seriously injured and has been in a wheelchair ever since. Ultimately, this young couple was caught and charged for their crimes. Darris is now in prison, and Edmonton spent 12 years in prison before being released on parole. Patsy Byers, the lady who was shot by Edmonton, later sued Oliver Stone on the advice of novelist John Grisham, claiming his film incited violence. However, a judge later dismissed the case. Definitely really bizarre, and at least raises some interesting debate. Another case that some have deemed a copycat crime was the gruesome murder of the Richardson family in Alberta in 2006. This dude named Jeremy Allen Stanky was 23 and had a 12-year-old girlfriend. So yeah, right away you know something's not right here. The girl's parents, the Richardsons, wisely forbade her from seeing her 23-year-old boyfriend. So the couple retaliated by killing her own family, which included her 8-year-old brother. Stanky supposedly watched the film the night before all this went down. They were found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder, and Richardson was sentenced to 10 years in prison, while Stanky was given life without the possibility of parole. There's been dozens of other incidents that people have claimed were copycat crimes, including the Columbine shootings, and many people still try to hold Stone accountable, which is insane to me because there are plenty of other films out there that are way worse. The courts still agree Stone shouldn't be held liable for any murders, mainly stating they have no evidence he intended to incite violence with his film. Number 5. Blake Fitzgerald and Brittany Harper. Back in January 2016, this dangerous couple wreaked havoc across the South when they went on a 10-day crime spree. They robbed stores and hotels, they stole cars, and they kidnapped people at gunpoint as they traveled from their home in Missouri on a 1,500-mile stretch of terror. Not my idea of a vacation, but then again, I personally don't find committing crimes fun and relaxing. This couple had reportedly only been Facebook official for 10 days before their crime spree began, which, if you ask me, isn't long enough for them to start committing crimes together. But then again, they did go Facebook official, which is a pretty good deal. That's a joke, by the way. Anyways, word of their crimes spread across the nation. People started calling them a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. Hey, how do you think they made it on this video? Of course, Bonnie and Clyde were way worse because they actually killed people. But Fitzgerald and Harper aren't exactly model citizens either. Fitzgerald was on probation for his past crimes, and the FBI put out a $10,000 bounty for the both of them. They made the journey from Missouri to Florida, where they were supposedly going to get married and start a new life together. Supposedly, they were short on money to live the life they want, and they really didn't believe in getting what you want the old-fashioned way. They decided to bend a few rules to get there. And by bending a few rules, I mean they robbed a hotel, kidnapped the clerk, stealing his car in the process. They did, however, release him unharmed. They then broke into a random home, took a woman hostage, and stole her car too. Thankfully, they released her unharmed as well. This seemed to be their calling card. They rob a place, take a hostage, steal a car, and let the hostage go. They also stole a car from a dealership and allegedly robbed Fitzgerald's step-parents' house. That's one way to get to know your in-laws, I guess. And they eventually got all the way to Florida before they were found hiding out in a residential neighborhood. Does anyone actually look at those criminal wanted postings online or in real life? Because I definitely don't. Here's where things take a turn. Fitzgerald wasn't exactly a great guy, as I mentioned earlier. He had a rap sheet that included 4 DUIs, an assault charge, and a first-degree burglary charge. But he really showed how he really felt about Brittany when he got into a standoff with the cops. He took her and used her as a human shield as he tried to escape. Come on. During the shootout with police, Harper was wounded in the leg, but Fitzgerald was killed. While they both, maybe, had their moment of fame, if that's even the right word, I doubt that they'll be remembered in the same way that Bonnie and Clyde were. Number 4. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Now, on the surface, this one might not sound so crazy, but it's still an interesting story regardless. Back in 1953, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed by the US government for being spies for the Soviet Union. While many of their friends and family maintained that the couple were merely innocent victims of Cold War paranoia, declassified information suggests otherwise. The two met in 1936 when they were members of the Young Communist League, which already, obviously, puts them on high alert. Soon after they got married in 1939, Julius joined the army but was fired after he was found out to be a commie. However, while Julius was at work for the army, he was stationed at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, where extensive research on electronics, communication, and radar and guided missile controls were conducted. It was alleged that he used his access there to sneak information to the Soviets. He was even accused of leaking Manhattan Project information regarding the atomic bomb to the Soviets. Even though the US and the Soviets were allies at the time, still, they didn't share this kind of info. Julius also recruited other spies, while Ethel hid money, spy material, and acted as a liaison between Julius and his Soviet contacts. When they were caught, they were in some deep since being a communist was supposedly the worst thing someone could be accused of back then. After a trial that many critics have said was slanted, the two were found guilty of treason and sentenced to death. Judge Erwin Kaufman cited the Espionage Act of 1917 and stated that he considered their crime worse than murder. He further stated that the U.S. had evidence of their treachery, as the civilian defense activities throughout the nation were aimed at prepping for an atomic bomb attack. The two were electrocuted to death on June 19, 1953. Since then, their children have argued that while Julius was guilty of espionage, he didn't deserve to die, and that Ethel wasn't even guilty at all. They still campaign for her exoneration. Number 3. Joseph and Jennifer Carrier. In 2015, this Massachusetts couple were arrested after they pulled off a number of bank robberies in Massachusetts, Florida, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Delaware. Joseph and Jenny Carrier traveled around in a stolen SUV with their 7 dogs, knocking off banks. I mean, I love my pets as much as the next person, but who in the hell brings their pets on a crime spree? Joseph would casually stroll into the bank and demand money from the teller, usually just indicating that he was armed. Jenny was the getaway driver, and the dogs, as far as I know, weren't involved in the planning. In all, the Carriers made off with just $15,000 from 5 banks, which is pretty weak. However, given that they were heroin addicts, it's actually amazing they even managed to pull off just one successful robbery. The robberies were mostly done to support their illicit habit, as you probably guessed, which, according to friends and family, left the two homeless and broke. Their SUV was stolen from a dealership that Jenny worked at. After a month, their heroin-fueled crime spree came to an end when police chased them down near the Philadelphia airport after a 90-mile-per-hour car chase. Joseph was charged with 5 counts of felony, bank robbery, while Jenny was charged with aiding and abetting. Some people, including a police officer involved in the investigation, dubbed the Carriers as a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. Aside from being way too cliche, it doesn't hold up. Bonnie and Clyde stole way more money and wreaked way more havoc. Number 2. Megan Joyce VARN and Jonathan Michael Robinson. What's better than having tattoos on your face? Well, it's obviously having the whites in your eyes tattooed black. Soon after making Joyce VARN's arrest, this mugshot went viral. And it's understandable why. It was a hit all over the internet. I mean, she looks like a character from the Suicide Squad or something. While it's not exactly clear if she actually got her eyes tattooed, what is clear is that she's a very dangerous human being. On April 24, 2017, a SWAT team greeted the 24-year-old South Carolinian and her boyfriend at the door after they robbed a guy and held him hostage. Apparently, they lured this dude that they both knew into their house and robbed him of his wallet and phone. While people on social media have made it clear how utterly terrifying they find VARN's appearance, the SWAT team didn't seem too worried about it. The SWAT team was able to arrest VARNs and Robinson without much incident. According to the NY Daily News, deputy sheriffs in Lancaster County actually helped VARNs deliver a baby in 2015 when her water broke unexpectedly. Pictures from that report showed that she had a drastically different appearance. What I can say is that having a baby isn't the most likely reason for people to tattoo their eyes and get all tatted up. Number 1. MYRA Hindley and Ian Brady. MYRA Hindley and Ian Brady were responsible for the infamous Moors murders in England during the 1960s. In 1963 and 1965, Hindley and Brady committed a series of 5 atrocious murders of kids aged between 10 and 17 years old. This couple would bury their victims' bodies in the Saddleworth Moor, which is where the name Moors Murders comes from. Their evil deeds began on July 12, 1963, when Brady told Hindley that he wanted to, quote, commit the perfect murder. And Hindley seemed totally cool with that. So they set up a really devious plan where Hindley would drive around in a van while Brady followed behind on a motorcycle. When he saw a suitable victim, he would flash his headlights and Hindley would pull the car over and offer them a lift. Their first target was Pauline Reed, a 16-year-old neighbor of theirs. They lured her into the car and drove her to the moor where Brady slit her throat twice and sexually assaulted the girl. Ugh. He buried her body before fleeing the scene. And over the next 2 years, they would also kill John Kilbride, Keith Bennett, and Leslie Ann Downey in a similar manner, luring them to the moor, killing them, sexually assaulting them, and then burying them. Their final victim was 17-year-old Edward Evans, who Brady lured to his home where he hacked him to death with an axe. Since that killing was witnessed by Hindley's brother-in-law, David Smith, Brady was pretty much screwed as his brother-in-law wasn't going to let him get away with murder. He was arrested on October 7, 1965, when the cops found Evans' dead body stowed away in Brady's home. After trying to lie to investigators, Brady was ultimately suspected of being involved in the case of the other missing kids. When they searched his house, they found photographs of Brady and Hindley crouching over dead bodies on the moors. Dumb for them, great for the authorities. That led to cops searching the area and finding 3 of the bodies. Brady was charged for the murders, and Hindley was charged with assisting in the murders. Even though they pled not guilty, Brady was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences, while Hindley was given just 2, plus a concurrent 7-year term for harboring Brady. By 1985, they confessed to all of the crimes, cementing their status as one of the most dangerous couples of all time. Hindley passed away in 2002 from heart disease, while 79-year-old Brady is still in prison. Here's what's next. A man's best friend. They're the type of animals that would do anything for you if you properly train them. But of course, there's always the person who has mommy and daddy issues or are just born f***ed up in the head. Such as William Leonard Dodson, who tortured this poor dog.